Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Then, when phase 2 begins, there will be an exchange for release of the remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, and all remaining Israeli forces will be withdrawn from Gaza, and the temporary ceasefire will become permanent. And finally, phase 3, any final remains of hostages who have been killed will be returned to their families, and a major reconstruction plan for Gaza will begin. This is the ceasefire agreement I introduced last spring. Today, Hamas and Israel have agreed to that ceasefire agreement and the whole ending the war. You know, those of you who have followed the negotiations can attest, the road to this deal has not been easy. I've worked in foreign policy for decades. This is one of the toughest negotiations I've ever experienced. And we reached this point because of the pressure that Israel built on Hamas, backed by the United States. Hamas's longtime leader, Sinwar, was killed. Hamas's strongest supporter, Iran, launched attacks on Israel. And those attacks failed after my administration organized a coalition of nations to stop them. And after I ordered the U.S. ships and planes to come to Israel's defense, we also shaped Israel's strong and calibrated response, destroying Iran's air defenses, but avoiding an escalatory cycle of an all-out war. The United States also organized a coalition of 20 countries to stand up to attacks by the Houthis, including their missile attacks in Israel. Then, Hezbollah, another of Hamas's strongest backers, was significantly weakened on the battlefield, and its leadership was destroyed. With our support, Israel negotiated a ceasefire with them, and after that, Lebanon finally elected a new president who's not beholden to Hezbollah.
Right.
And he can begin a new chapter for the Lebanese people. All told, these developments in the region, which the United States helped to shape, changed the equation.
I mean, the idea that all of this happens in the last 15 months is lost on a lot of people because the right wing didn't talk about it at all. I mean, it was like not even going on, right? Because Biden would have gotten credit from the right wing for allowing Israel to, answer a terrible, terrible terrorist attack that happened to them early morning, October 7th, 15 months ago. And the right wing didn't want to give Biden credit for anything, for nothing. But look at what has happened in the Middle East with Biden at the helm after this terrorist attack happened in southern Israel on October 7th. He put together a coalition, Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, believe it or not, the UAE, a whole host of people. You know, you don't have Hezbollah anymore in Lebanon. Hezbollah is pretty much gone in Lebanon to the point where Lebanon actually held an election and chose a new president for the state, for the country, that doesn't have any regard or loyalty to or love for the terrorist organization Hezbollah, who is an Iranian proxy group. Remember, I kept talking about the three H's, right? I call them the three H's because in Spanish, H is H. And there are no H's in Espanol. There aren't. Like the name Hector is Hector. There's no H's. No H's ever. Okay. So you had the three H's, okay? You had Hamas, Gaza, you had Hezbollah, Lebanon, and you had the Houthis in Yemen. You also had Bashar al-Assad in Syria, who was gassing his own people when Donald Trump was president. And Donald Trump's response to that was, oh, let Russia have Syria. Let Russia finish this out. If Assad is their client, and Assad was Russia, Putin's client, then I don't want to get in the middle of those two. Those two lovebirds, they're digging each other. But when Assad gassed children, the world actually looked to the democratic heads of the world to do something. So what did Trump do? This guy that you think is so tough and so strong and so feared around the world, what did he do? He left Assad alone. He left Assad to sit there and gas people. But he dropped a couple of bombs on a airfield way out in the middle of the desert, an airfield, which the next morning was open and Russian planes were landing on it. That was it. That was the total response to Assad's brutal murder of Syrians, his own people. So I don't know why anybody would think that he's so feared or so tough or what he says is frightening to them. Now, I'll tell you right now, this happened because the terrorist organizations, the flying monkeys, as I call them, that protect Iran, because this was always Iran, that protect Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, are pretty much decimated. There's like nothing left. You know, Hamas had, at the beginning, when we first started giving you, numbers of, how many Hamas terrorists there were. For the most part, the government of Gaza was totally run by Hamas. I think everybody came to learn that, came to understand that that was true. That was true. So what did people here do with that information, that a terrorist organization was actually running the government of the best chance that the Palestinians had to have a Palestinian state? They said, well, of course, because they need to. I'm sorry? They need to. They need to attack. They need to be brutal. They need to, burn people out of their houses. They need to behead people. They need to go in there in the middle of the morning. They need to kidnap 250 people living in a kibbutz. You left them no choice. Well, I got news for you. That was a terrorist organization, not the people. And that terrorist organization no longer is operational in the Gaza Strip. And this is why I'm saying to you, now there's a chance for a Palestinian state because Hamas is gone. And there were about 26,000 Hamas people, Hamas terrorists. And them and the civilians that they used as shields, they're gone. They're gone. And their families, that hid them, or their families that they, hid behind, because that's how bloodthirsty they are. That's how terrorists operate. That's how they go. That's what they do. And that we had Americans that were literally rooting for them, rooting for a terrorist organization. I mean, it was just like breathtaking, really. And I'm the one that got the disclaimer. I'm the one that was that don't believe what she says. Look it up for yourself. I mean, it was frightening to me what happened. But that's the hard left, okay? And honestly, I was stunned by it. The support for they no longer operate. And so the Palestinians, the civilians, the people there, they got the same chance as Syria has now. Syria has a chance because Bashar al-Assad, he fled Syria too, with Biden as the president. Fled and went back to Russia, where his benefactor, his owner, his puppet master is. Went to Putin. They all go to Putin. All these dictators, they run to Putin, and Putin protects them. Putin houses them. Putin gives them the safe harbor. So Syria is sort of free, okay? And Iran is hobbled. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.